Welcome back, all you beautiful boys and girls, to another Far Cry New Dawn video. First off, I gotta say I'm sorry about the time in between uploads here. I've been feeling a little under the weather lately, but now I'm back to 100%, and I come bearing gifts. Mainly, this spicy bit of Far Cry New Dawn fan theory, which is, could the deputy, or the judge in New Dawn, be an angel from Far Cry 5? First off, I gotta say that this theory is a little more looser than some of the other theories that I've had on this channel before. A lot of my theories, I have a lot of very solid evidence that I found in game to back it up. Even though it's still a theory, it could still be proved wrong at any point. This one's a little looser, a little more hanging out there on the edge, but I do have a lot of little in-game things that I've found that I think is going to be enough evidence to present this theory to other people and see what they think. So to get started here, I got to explain to you how I came up with this idea in the first place. And basically it happened as I was playing New Dawn. I was using the judge as my gun for hire, and I noticed, the judge makes a lot of grunting noises and things like that. Doesn't talk, of course, we all know that. And anytime you tell the judge to go to a certain location or attack an enemy, they give you a grunt. When they're down, they just make a bunch of grunting noises, and that's all they do is grunt, and it's kind of awkward, to be honest, but it's all they do. But it reminded me of something. It reminded me of the noises that the angels from Far Cry 5 made. If you would sneak up on one and you wouldn't attack them, or even if you attacked them, they just make grunting and kind of yelling noises. They don't talk either. And this led me to kind of somewhat conclude that the deputy could possibly be an angel. And it would explain a lot of how the deputy ended up becoming the judge and not disowning Joseph or things like that. Well, there are a lot of other theories, like just the fact that the deputy saw that Joseph was right and things like that. I think we need something a little more solid. I'm not saying this is it, but I'm saying this is another option here. Some of the evidence I kind of have collected to back this up comes from Far Cry 5, in fact, and not New Dawn. It comes from Tweak, or the man who gave us the missions where we got the Fast and the Furious drugs. And it comes from the ingredients of those drugs. If you notice that those drugs both require bliss oil to be created or be crafted. And that kind of made me think, well, Tweak has taken bliss, the thing that the Peggies made, refined it into something else and made it useful. And it reminded me of what happens in New Dawn, where Joseph takes the bliss, dumps it on top of a waterfall, and it grows into a tree that then bears fruit. And if you eat that fruit and you survive eating it, you gain these sort of powers or abilities, the jump further, the stealth abilities, the being stronger abilities. That reminds you kind of the Fast and Furious drugs, doesn't it? It's kind of coincidence, kind of not, to me, that these two things are both created from bliss, and they're very similar. And that also led me to believe that if Joseph has figured out how to create a better version of bliss, could he in fact have created a better version of bliss that makes the angels? He spent a lot of time in the bunker, 5 or 6 years. Again, he didn't stay underground the full 17 years in between 5 and New Dawn. He was only underground for 5 years or so. I don't actually know if it's ever said how long he was underground. I may have missed it. I don't believe it is said actual date though, but going off how long other people stayed underground and hidden, I'm going to say 5 years. And that's a lot of years, especially with only one other person around to experiment and figure things out. And even if Joseph only had a small supply of bliss with him, if he in fact put that bliss on a plant, that plant grew and he realized it was a purer or better form of bliss, he could have in fact fed it to the deputy somehow. They were very close, probably eating the same food, cooked at the same time, things like that. The deputy's already dealing with some crises of their own, like some survivor's guilt that we notice. Joseph could have, in fact, while they were underground, given the deputy this better form of bliss. And the theory I'm working with right now is this better form of bliss makes a better angel. We know that from Far Cry 5, the angels aren't good for much. They're good for menial labor, they're good for fodder in a battle. They aren't very strong as fighting goes. You know, they take a lot of bullets, but that's about it. They're not really useful besides just being laborers. You know, they use them to harvest the bliss crops and things like that. If you could make a form of that bliss that helps the person you give it to keep some of their natural abilities, like the deputy's ability to kill and just be ultra violent, and even possibly influence them more, you could create sort of a Angel 2.0. And that's what I think the Judge is an Angel 2.0. Because the grunting, the ability not to talk. This also comes from the fact that I think it's weird the Judge doesn't talk, because they never say in Far Cry 5 that the Judge is a mute or anything like that. The Judge, or not the Judge, it'd be the player character, the deputy in Far Cry 5. But they never say that they're a mute or anything like that. There's no reason why they couldn't talk in another game besides just some story collision. And it just kind of led me down this road, and it's a rabbit hole I've been kind of digging into the last week or so, slowly playing the game, and I think, you know, there's enough there to make this theory, but there's not enough there, like I said at the beginning, to say this is for sure fact. It's kind of up in the air, but I really do believe that if Joseph has figured out a way to create a better bliss, that he could have used that bliss to create better angels. And in fact, the way he talks to the Judge, the way he uses the Judge doesn't act like a follower per se. The Judge acts like somebody who's just told what to do and they do it. Like a mindless person, the angels. It's very similar how the Judge acts compared to the angels, just the Judge has retained their abilities, like I said before, the ability to fight. And the quote from Joseph is the only language that the Judge speaks is violence. And I think he created that purposefully. He knew he was going into a very violent world. And we know from fact that Joseph isn't really a very strong fighter, person to person. He uses tricks and manipulations to win his battles. And going into a world that's just been destroyed, tricks and manipulation isn't going to get you very far. It takes some sort of organization to be able to trick people. So my theory is he knew that. We don't really know what happened underground. It's still loose. But he needed somebody that could protect him once they came above ground, knowing that the world would be completely different and probably a little more violent than it was before, or at least a little more wild. You know, even just looking at the animals and things like that in the world, having someone like the Judge that is very badass at fighting, very effective, but also just does anything you want them to do, would be a very valuable asset to someone like Joseph Seed in creating a new cult once they come above, because there's only going to be so many members from the old cult still around and still wanting to participate. So he needed to create a new cult, which obviously we know he did. It wasn't really as much of a cult, more a village, but still, it was the Project at Eden's Gate still, just now it was New Eden. That's really it for my theory. I'd really like to know what you guys have to say about it. You know, comment section, Twitter, anywhere you can hit me up and tell me your opinion on this matter. I think it could be true, but the problem is, like I said, and I'll repeat again, there's no way for me to come to you with 100% concrete evidence and say, this is a solid fan theory that we should just start taking as fact. I can't say that. You shouldn't take this. It's 100% a theory. But that's really all I got, though. Take it as you will. Like I said, let me know what you think. And I'm going to wrap it up here. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a like to let me know you enjoyed it. And if you enjoy Far Cry 5, Far Cry New Dawn, or anything Far Cry, go ahead, go down to my channel, click on it, watch a few more videos, and hey, If you enjoy them, go ahead and click the subscribe button so you never miss another one. Once again, I appreciate everything you guys do for me, and as always, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.